Patricia Carlos sat frozen at the conference table as her boss, Mr. Harrison, pointed directly at her. His voice boomed across the room filled with her coworkers. "Patricia here is dead weight," he announced with a cruel smile. "She's been dragging this team down for months. Maybe it's time we considered making some changes around here." The room fell silent. Patricia felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment as 12 pairs of eyes stared at her. Some looked sympathetic, others seemed uncomfortable, but a few smirked like they agreed with Harrison's harsh words. Patricia had worked at Sterling Marketing for 3 years. She'd always been reliable, completed her projects on time, and helped her teammates whenever needed. But Harrison had been targeting her ever since he became department head 6 months ago. She clenched her fists under the table, fighting back tears of rage and humiliation. If you like our revenge stories, please subscribe for more. We drop powerful news stories every week, filled with truth, emotion, and justice. Don't miss the next one. And remember, some stories hurt, but they heal too. Subscribe now, and join the journey. After the meeting, Patricia rushed to the bathroom and locked herself in a stall. Her hands shook as she pulled out her phone and typed a text to her best friend, Mia. "He did it again. Called me dead weight in front of everyone." When she finally returned to her desk, her coworker Jamie approached cautiously. "Hey, are you okay?" "That was really unfair what Harrison said," Jamie whispered, glancing around nervously. "I'm fine," Patricia lied, forcing a smile. But inside, something had shifted. She was tired of being Harrison's punching bag. Tired of his condescending remarks and public humiliation tactics. That evening, Patricia sat in her small apartment, staring at her laptop screen. She'd been updating her resume, ready to quit and find a new job. But then she had a different thought. Why should she be the one to leave? Why should Harrison get to push her out after everything she'd contributed? Patricia spent her weekend doing something she'd never done before, investigating her boss. She started with simple Google searches about Mr. Harrison and Sterling Marketing, then dug deeper into public records and company databases she had access to as an employee. What she found was interesting. Harrison had only been with the company for 8 months, but he'd already made significant changes to department budgets and vendor contracts. Some of these changes seemed questionable. On Monday morning, Patricia arrived at work with renewed energy. Instead of avoiding Harrison like she usually did, she observed him carefully. She noticed how he treated different employees, how he handled meetings, and most importantly, how he managed the department's finances. During lunch, she casually struck up conversations with coworkers from other departments. She learned that several people had concerns about recent changes but were afraid to speak up. Patricia realized she wasn't the only one suffering under Harrison's leadership. The difference was, she was ready to do something about it. If you like our revenge stories, please subscribe for more. We drop powerful news stories every week, filled with truth, emotion, and justice. Don't miss the next one. And remember, some stories hurt, but they heal too. Subscribe now, and join the journey. Patricia knew she couldn't take on Harrison alone. She needed allies, but she had to be careful about who she trusted. Over the next few days, she had quiet conversations with coworkers she'd known the longest. "Have you noticed anything strange about the new vendor contracts?" she asked Tommy from accounting during their coffee break. Tommy looked around nervously before nodding. "The prices seem higher than before, but Harrison said they were necessary upgrades. I've been wanting to question it, but you know how he gets." Patricia also talked to Nina from Human Resources, who had been with the company for 7 years. Nina revealed that she'd received several informal complaints about Harrison's management style, but no one had filed official reports. "People are scared," Nina explained. "He has the ear of upper management, and everyone's worried about job security in this economy." By Friday, Patricia had identified 5 coworkers who shared her concerns about Harrison. They agreed to meet for coffee the following weekend to discuss their options. The plan was beginning to form in Patricia's mind. Saturday afternoon, Patricia met with her 5 allies at a small cafe downtown, far from their office. The group included Tommy from accounting, Nina from HR, Jamie from marketing, Louise from IT, and Kimberly from customer service. "We all know Harrison is a problem," Patricia began, keeping her voice low. "But complaining isn't enough. We need evidence of actual wrongdoing." Tommy pulled out a folder of financial documents he'd copied. "These vendor contracts are definitely suspicious. We're paying 30% more for services that aren't any better than what we had before." Nina added, "I've been documenting every complaint I've received about his behavior. There's a clear pattern of harassment and intimidation." Louise leaned forward. "I can help with the technical side. If there's anything on his company computer or email that shouldn't be there, I might be able to find it legally through routine system maintenance." Patricia felt a surge of excitement. They weren't just angry employees anymore, they were becoming an organized team with a real plan. Monday morning brought an unexpected opportunity. Harrison called in sick, which gave the team a chance to work without his constant interference. Louise used this opportunity to perform routine maintenance on Harrison's computer. What he found was even better than they'd hoped. Hidden in a buried folder were email communications between Harrison and several vendors. The emails revealed that Harrison had been receiving kickbacks for steering contracts to specific companies, regardless of whether they offered the best services. "This is it," Louise whispered to Patricia as they reviewed the evidence in an empty conference room. "This is fraud. He's been stealing from the company." Patricia felt her heart racing. They had real evidence now, evidence that could end Harrison's career and possibly land him in legal trouble. But she knew they had to be smart about how they used it. "We need to document everything properly," she said. "And we need to make sure we're protected when we report this." The revenge she'd been planning was turning into something much bigger than personal satisfaction. Patricia and her team spent the next week carefully documenting everything they discovered. Nina helped them understand the proper procedures for reporting fraud within the company, while Tommy worked on calculating exactly how much money Harrison had cost Sterling Marketing. The numbers were staggering. Harrison's corrupt vendor deals had cost the company over $200,000 in just 6 months. But Patricia knew they needed more than just financial evidence. They needed proof that Harrison was abusing his authority in other ways too. She started keeping a detailed log of every interaction she had with Harrison, noting dates, times, witnesses, and exact quotes. Her coworkers did the same. They also began secretly recording meetings when legally possible in their state. By Thursday, they had built a comprehensive case that showed a pattern of fraud, harassment, and mismanagement. But Patricia wasn't ready to act yet. She wanted to make sure Harrison couldn't weasel his way out of the consequences. She had one more card to play. Friday afternoon, Harrison called another team meeting. Patricia entered the conference room with her usual nervous demeanor, but inside she felt completely different. She was no longer the victim, she was the one in control. "I've been reviewing our quarterly numbers," Harrison announced, "and I'm disappointed. Some people on this team clearly aren't pulling their weight." His eyes found Patricia across the table. "Patricia, your project completion rate is concerning. Maybe you're just not cut out for this level of responsibility." This time, Patricia didn't look down or blush with embarrassment. Instead, she met his gaze directly and said, "Could you be more specific about which projects you're referring to, Mr. Harrison? I'd like to understand your concerns better." Harrison seemed surprised by her response but recovered quickly. "Don't get defensive with me. Your attitude is part of the problem." "I'm not being defensive," Patricia replied calmly. "I'm asking for specific feedback so I can improve my performance. Isn't that what good employees do?" The room was tense. Everyone could feel that something had changed. Harrison's face reddened as Patricia continued to calmly challenge his vague criticisms. "You want specifics," he snapped. "Fine. Your marketing analysis for the Rodriguez campaign was completely useless. Your budget projections were wrong. And don't get me started on your presentation skills." Patricia pulled out a folder from her bag. "Actually, I have the client feedback from the Rodriguez campaign right here. They specifically praised my analysis and said it helped them increase sales by 15%. Would you like me to read their comments? Harrison's confident expression faltered for a moment. That's not the point. And regarding budget projections, Patricia continued, mine were actually more accurate than the department's official estimates. We came in 12% under my projected costs. The other team members were watching this exchange with amazement. They'd never seen anyone stand up to Harrison like this before, especially not Patricia. You're being insubordinate, Harrison growled. This kind of attitude is exactly why you're dead weight around here. Patricia smiled slightly. Is that your professional assessment, Mr. Harrison? Yes, it is my professional assessment, Harrison declared loudly. You're dead weight, Patricia. You always have been, and frankly, I'm questioning why we keep you around at all. Patricia nodded slowly, as if considering his words. What Harrison didn't know was that Louise had set up a small recording device in the conference room that morning, legally positioned to capture audio for meeting minutes. I appreciate your honesty, Patricia said. Since you're questioning my value to the company, perhaps we should schedule a formal performance review with HR present? That way, we can document your concerns properly and create an improvement plan. Harrison waved dismissively. You don't need HR involvement for this. I'm telling you directly, shape up or ship out. Actually, according to company policy, all formal disciplinary discussions should include HR documentation, Patricia replied calmly. I'd hate for either of us to be out of compliance with company procedures. The mention of company compliance made Harrison visibly uncomfortable. Patricia noticed his jaw tighten and his hands clench. She was getting to him, and everyone in the room could see it. The trap was working perfectly. That evening, Patricia met with her allies at their usual cafe. The mood was electric with anticipation. He took the bait perfectly, Patricia reported. Everything is recorded, documented, and ready to go. Nina pulled out official forms from HR. I've prepared all the necessary paperwork for filing complaints. We have harassment, fraud, and now we have him on record making discriminatory statements. Tommy had calculated the final numbers. Between the fraudulent vendor contracts and the productivity losses from his poor management, Harrison has cost the company nearly $300,000. Luis grinned. And I have all the digital evidence backed up in multiple secure locations. He can't delete or hide anything now. But Patricia held up her hand. We're not reporting this internally first. Harrison has too many connections in upper management. They might try to cover it up or just transfer him to another department. Then what do you want to do? Kimberly asked. Patricia's eyes gleamed with determination. We're going straight to the top. And we're going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person Harrison really is. Monday morning, Patricia dressed more professionally than usual. She'd scheduled a meeting with the CEO's office under the pretense of presenting a cost-saving initiative for the marketing department. Mr. Sterling, the company's founder and CEO, was known for his hands-on approach and zero tolerance for fraud. Patricia knew that if she could get just 10 minutes with him, she could change everything. Meanwhile, her team implemented the final phase of their plan. Tommy submitted his findings to the company's fraud hotline. Nina filed formal HR complaints against Harrison. Luis ensured all digital evidence was properly secured and accessible to investigators. At 2 p.m., Patricia sat across from CEO Sterling in his corner office, her heart pounding but her voice steady. Mr. Sterling, I've discovered some serious financial irregularities in our department that I believe require immediate attention, she began, sliding a comprehensive report across his desk. Sterling opened the folder and his expression grew increasingly serious as he read. These are significant allegations, Patricia. You understand what you're claiming here? Yes, sir. And I have extensive documentation to support everything in that report. Within hours of Patricia's meeting with CEO Sterling, the company launched a formal investigation. Harrison was immediately placed on administrative leave pending the review of evidence. The news spread through the office like wildfire. Patricia returned to her desk to find her phone buzzing with texts from coworkers who had heard the rumors. Is it true Harrison's been suspended? Jamie whispered. Patricia just shrugged. I wouldn't know anything about that. But inside, she felt a satisfaction she'd never experienced before. For months, Harrison had made her feel small, incompetent, and worthless. Now he was the one facing uncertainty and judgment. The investigation team, led by an external firm, interviewed every employee in the department. Patricia's allies provided their documented evidence and testimony. Even employees who had been afraid to speak up before now felt safe to share their experiences. By Wednesday, the investigators had uncovered additional evidence that Patricia's team hadn't even found. Harrison's fraud was more extensive than anyone had realized, and his pattern of harassment affected nearly everyone in the department. Patricia watched it all unfold with quiet pride. Friday afternoon brought the news everyone had been waiting for. Harrison's termination was announced in an all-staff email, along with notification that the company was pursuing legal action for fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. Patricia was in the break room when the email went out. She watched her coworkers' faces as they read the news on their phones. Relief, satisfaction, and vindication were the common expressions. I can't believe he's really gone, Tommy said, joining Patricia by the coffee machine. I heard they found evidence of over $500,000 in fraudulent transactions, Nina added quietly. And that's just what they've discovered so far. But the best moment came when Patricia returned to her desk to find a personal email from CEO Sterling. Patricia, your courage in reporting these issues has saved our company significant losses and protected your coworkers from continued harassment. Your actions demonstrate the kind of integrity and leadership we value. Please schedule a meeting with me next week to discuss your future with Sterling Marketing. Patricia smiled as she read the message. Harrison had called her dead weight, but she had just proved she was invaluable. The following Monday, Patricia walked into an office that felt completely different. Without Harrison's toxic presence, the entire department seemed lighter. People were talking more freely, collaborating better, and actually seemed to enjoy their work again. Patricia's role in Harrison's downfall was an open secret, though she never explicitly confirmed her involvement. Coworkers treated her with new respect, not just as someone who had survived Harrison's abuse, but as someone who had fought back and won. During her meeting with CEO Sterling, Patricia learned that the investigation had uncovered fraud totaling over $800,000. Harrison was facing criminal charges and would likely serve prison time. Your documentation and evidence gathering was exceptional, Sterling told her. Have you ever considered a role in our compliance department? Or perhaps management? Patricia felt a surge of excitement. The woman Harrison had called dead weight was being offered a promotion by the CEO himself. I'd be very interested in exploring management opportunities, she replied confidently. I think I have some ideas about how to improve department culture and performance. Sterling smiled. I'm sure you do. 3 weeks later, Patricia was announced as the interim department manager while the company searched for Harrison's permanent replacement. Her first team meeting was surreal, sitting at the head of the same conference table where Harrison had humiliated her just a month earlier. I know we've all been through a difficult period, she addressed her former peers, who were now her subordinates. But I believe we can build something better here. A department where everyone's contributions are valued and respected. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Tommy, Nina, Jamie, Luis, and Kimberly, her partners in bringing down Harrison, became her most trusted advisors in implementing new policies and procedures. Patricia instituted weekly one-on-one meetings with each team member, transparent performance reviews, and an open-door policy for concerns. Everything Harrison had failed to do, she did properly. Within a month, the department's productivity increased by 25%. Employee satisfaction scores went through the roof. Projects were completed on time and under budget. Patricia had transformed from Harrison's favorite target into the most successful manager in the company's history. 6 months after Harrison's termination, Sterling Marketing held its annual company awards ceremony. Patricia sat in the audience, still amazed by how much her life had changed. When CEO Sterling took the stage for his closing remarks, he did something unexpected. This year, our company faced a serious threat from internal fraud and corruption. But we also discovered something valuable, that ordinary employees with extraordinary integrity can make all the difference. Patricia felt her heart skip as Sterling continued. Patricia Carlos demonstrated remarkable courage in exposing wrongdoing that could have cost us millions of dollars and destroyed our company culture. Her actions didn't just save money, they saved careers, protected employees, and upheld our values. The room erupted in applause as Patricia was called to the stage to receive the company's highest honor, the Integrity Award. As she accepted the crystal plaque, she thought about Harrison's cruel words, "Dead weight." If only he could see her now. The following Monday, CEO Sterling called Patricia into his office with news she'd been hoping to hear. "The executive team has made a decision about the permanent management position," he began. "We don't need to look outside the company. The job is yours if you want it." Patricia felt a moment of overwhelming gratitude. Less th. Now she was being offered his job, with a substantial salary increase and the full support of upper management. "I accept," she said without hesitation. Her first act as permanent manager was to implement a zero-tolerance policy for workplace harassment. Her second was to establish a confidential reporting system for employee concerns. She was determined that no one in her department would ever experience what she had endured under Harrison. The promotion came with a corner office, ironically, the same office Harrison had used. Patricia redecorated completely, removing all traces of his occupancy and creating a welcoming space where employees felt comfortable bringing their ideas and concerns. On her first day in the new office, she found a card on her desk from her team. "To our amazing manager, you turned dead weight into pure gold." 1 year after the confrontation that changed everything, Patricia was preparing for the company's quarterly board presentation. As the new VP of Marketing, another promotion she'd earned through her exceptional performance, she would be presenting directly to the board of directors. The irony wasn't lost on her. Harrison had claimed she lacked presentation skills, yet here she was, about to present to the most important audience in the company. Her presentation focused on the department's remarkable turnaround, productivity up 40%, employee retention at an all-time high, and cost savings of over $1.2 million in the past year through better vendor management and streamlined processes. As she practiced her presentation, Patricia reflected on the journey that had brought her here. Harrison's cruelty had initially broken her spirit, but ultimately, it had forged her into a stronger leader than she ever thought possible. His greatest insult had become her greatest motivation. Patricia was reviewing quarterly reports when Nina knocked on her office door with an unusual expression. "You might want to see this," Nina said, handing her a newspaper clipping. The headline read, "Former marketing executive sentenced to 3 years for corporate fraud." Below was a photo of Harrison in handcuffs, looking nothing like the arrogant man who had terrorized their workplace. The article detailed his conviction on multiple charges of fraud, embezzlement, and breach of fiduciary duty. The total amount he'd stolen was nearly $1.5 million, and he would serve 3 years in federal prison followed by 5 years of probation. Patricia felt no joy in seeing Harrison's downfall, but she felt a deep sense of closure. Justice had been served, and his victims had been vindicated. "He tried to destroy careers and lives," Nina observed. "Instead, he destroyed his own." Patricia folded the newspaper clipping and filed it away. Harrison's story was over, but hers was just beginning. As Patricia's reputation grew within the company and industry, she began receiving requests to mentor other employees who were facing workplace challenges. She discovered a passion for helping people develop the courage to stand up for themselves. One afternoon, a young employee named Carlos approached her office hesitantly. "Ms. Carlos, I was wondering if I could talk to you about a situation with my supervisor," he began nervously. Patricia recognized the fear and frustration in his eyes, the same emotions she'd felt when dealing with Harrison. She invited him in and listened as he described a pattern of verbal abuse and unfair treatment from his manager. "Have you documented these incidents?" Patricia asked. Carlos shook his head. "I didn't know I should." Patricia spent the next hour teaching him everything she'd learned about protecting himself, gathering evidence, and building a case for change. She gave him the tools and confidence he needed to address the situation properly. 2 months later, Carlos's abusive supervisor was terminated, and Carlos was promoted to lead his team. Patricia's transformation of the marketing department hadn't gone unnoticed outside Sterling Marketing. She began receiving invitations to speak at industry conferences about leadership, workplace culture, and ethical management practices. At her first major speaking engagement, Patricia stood before an audience of 500 marketing professionals and told her story, though she kept Harrison's name anonymous to protect the company's reputation. "I learned that being called dead weight by a bad leader doesn't define your worth," she told the audience. "It reveals their inability to recognize talent, develop people, or create positive work environments." The response was overwhelming. Dozens of people approached her afterward to share their own stories of workplace harassment and ask for advice on handling difficult situations. Patricia realized she had found her true calling. Not just managing a department, but helping others find their voice and fight for the respect they deserved. 5 years after the confrontation that changed her life, Patricia was named Chief Marketing Officer of Sterling Marketing. The announcement made the local business journal's front page. From target to top executive, Patricia Carlos's remarkable rise. The article chronicled her journey from a mid-level employee facing harassment to one of the most respected executives in the region. It highlighted her department's record-breaking performance, her innovative management approach, and her mentorship of other employees. But the moment that meant the most to Patricia came during her first executive committee meeting. CEO Sterling introduced her to the other C-level executives by saying, "Patricia Carlos is the kind of leader every company needs, someone with integrity, courage, and the ability to transform challenges into opportunities." As she looked around the conference room at her fellow executives, Patricia remembered sitting in that same building 5 years earlier, feeling worthless and defeated after Harrison's public humiliation. Harrison had called her dead weight, but she had become the foundation upon which the company's future success was built. On the 10th anniversary of Harrison's termination, Patricia hosted a special team meeting in the conference room where it all began. Most of her original allies were still with the company in various leadership roles. Tommy was the CFO, Nina headed HR, Luis ran IT, Jamie managed the creative team, and Kimberly led customer relations. 10 years ago, in this very room, someone tried to define my worth by calling me dead weight, Patricia addressed the group. That person is now serving time in federal prison while we've built one of the most successful marketing departments in the industry. The room erupted in applause and laughter. These people had been through the battle together and emerged victorious. But the real lesson isn't about revenge, Patricia continued. It's about refusing to let someone else's cruelty define your potential. It's about having the courage to stand up not just for yourself, but for everyone who can't find their voice. Under Patricia's leadership, Sterling Marketing had become known as one of the best places to work in the city, with zero tolerance for harassment and a culture of mutual respect and support. 20 years later, Patricia Carlos sat in the CEO's office, her office now, having been promoted to lead the entire company after Mr. Sterling's retirement. On her desk was a framed newspaper clipping from her early days, "Local Executive Transforms Department After Exposing Fraud." A young employee knocked on her door, looking nervous and defeated. Patricia recognized the expression immediately. "Please, sit down," she said warmly. "What's troubling you?" The young woman explained that her supervisor had been making her work environment miserable with constant criticism and public humiliation. "He called me worthless in front of the whole team today," she said, tears in her eyes. Patricia leaned forward with a knowing smile. "Let me tell you something that someone once told me. Being called worthless by a worthless leader doesn't make you worthless. It makes them afraid of your potential." She opened her desk drawer and pulled out a folder. "Now, let's talk about how to document everything properly, build your case, and ensure this never happens to anyone else." As Patricia began sharing the lessons she'd learned from her own transformation from victim to victor, she realized that Harrison's cruel words had ultimately been the greatest gift of her career. He had called her dead weight, but she had used that pain to lift others up and build an empire of respect, integrity, and success. In the end, Patricia Carlos truly did have the last word. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more powerful narratives, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what part hit you the hardest. Thanks for watching.